Wii tennis. That's better than nothing, right? You swing it as long as you don't throw your controller.
Teaches tennis, so sometimes I'll play with them just
And don't
because.
yell at you like,
No, like I'm doing it all along.
No,
So, in the game of tennis, now we're gonna have to talk about how we're not being quite as technical as you have to be when you actually play tennis. What's up?
Did you just have extra players?
I have one, but I stuck it in my thing. Are all our absent kids coming back now?
Well,
Problem is, I pulled the staple out of it, so I can give this away, but I gotta erase my name, and they gotta be okay with not having a staple. I have a bunch of peepers for you too.
Yeah, she just got here.
She can have this. There's just no staple.
Oh.
Meredith, do you care if there's no staple? I mean, it's going in your binder anyways, right?
You can be Micah Hudson.
Wait,
No,
Leanne,
you
can I see your
can't. You don't
calculator
wanna
so I
be
can
trusted.
info for mine?
If you're mean, I will pay my vet bill.
Oh, that's why I didn't.
Alright, so don't get this out of order. I don't think I wrote anything else in it.
Look, I don't have 5 minutes.
But yeah. So you're just gonna stick that in your binder. You're welcome. Man, I want the plan book. My pot is being foiled.
Type some random thing in your program, and it won't work.
Okay, so when you're actually playing tennis, like real tennis, the court is divided so you can play doubles, right? Guys, I'm here to not just teach you math, but about life, and who knows, you might have a business meeting on the tennis court sometimes, because business people are weird and they have to go do things. I'm not joking, yes. Like they'll go play golf, or meet at the club to play tennis, or like whatever. You don't look so.
Squash. So like I
Yeah,
think we
squash,
should
or
go with
pickleball,
squash. I
or
feel like
cricket,
it's the
or all kinds of
squash
weird
and
names
cricket I
sports.
like that.
That sounds
So,
like old rich people.
Technically, when you go up to the serve, you are either serving from the right or the left side, depending on where the score is. You start from the right side, and you have to serve diagonally across the court, right? We are going to ignore that for right now. Notice how the court has no center line splitting it. We're going to be looking at the triangle of the ball coming down to land within the safe service box. Now, there is no man's land on the edges and the back box. You cannot serve there. That serve is out. So you have to be inside the singles lines, because the alleys on the sides are just if you're playing doubles. You have to be inside the singles lines and before this back line. Now, here's all the dimensions of our tennis court. And you might want to draw this on your paper just to help you out, but I'll let that be your decision. From the net to the service line, which is the back of the court essentially, is 39 feet. The distance across both service areas, so there would actually be a line splitting this, but we're ignoring that for our lesson today, that's 27 feet. I want to say the alleys are each an extra 3-ish feet. I mean, just from playing tennis, it's probably about 3 feet on each side. But that doesn't matter. The net, if it's set up properly, is 3 feet up. And actually, there's a very specific way that the nets have to be tightened down in the middle, that the middle of the net is actually lower than the edges of the net. We're also going to ignore that. So if you ever watch, like, any professional tennis, they're out there measuring before the match, because there's a strap in the middle that connects it to the ground, like there's a clip, and it has to be a very specific height. Because the edges, there's metal poles, and that height's easy to get. But you also want your net to not be like squishy. You want it to be tight. So, Karina, pretty good tennis player, right? She's been working on her serve, and the greatest serves just barely get over the net. And actually, if you hit the net and still get over, it counts.
Oh.
I've had that happen and it's so sad.
Yeah, now not on the serve, but after the serve it counts. If you do that on the serve, you get to reserve and try again. So, she wants to just get it over the net and land it in the service box. Right, so the whole court is 78 feet long. That's how we get 39 on one half, 39 on the other half. Now here's the interesting thing. Back to the legal service area is 21 feet, which means how wide is the non-legal service, or how deep is this other section? 18, right? So they're not even. You actually get a little bit extra space in your service box. By like 3 feet. Yeah, 3 foot difference. 18 to 21, hard math. You know, it's a Monday. So here's all the data that we have. So here's our task. Assuming that Karina hits the ball so hard that its path is linear, because we know most paths are going to have some kind of like parabolic effect from gravity. But if you're going fast enough, gravity doesn't have enough time to impact it. So we'll assume it's a straight line. And she's 5 feet 7 inches tall. Decent height. What angle does the ball need to be hit at?
Well, trig.
What could we look at first if we just want to figure out like
Okay.
the angle the ball needs to be traveling on? I'm going to let this marinate with you guys for a minute before I help you because I don't want to push you the right direction yet.
60 feet.
Yeah.
She needs to hit it 60 feet.
Less than.
Oh yeah, also
She hits it
more
over.
than
Okay, so like
Now, actually, technically, she's behind the line.
Oh,
It is illegal if your foot crosses that line. It is illegal if the ball crosses this line. So you could say 60 feet because you're assuming she's behind the line and you want the ball to be behind the line, right? So if you want to say 60, that's okay. But I'm just clarifying, don't go past the line. But do we want to use the whole 60 right now? I'll shut up. Sorry.
well, I don't think I
Well,
don't think you want to
what
try to
does
get
that
it to the
mean?
edge of the no. So you probably
Okay,
want
so it's like look at that
41,
corner. That corner.
right? Because she wants
That-
it to just make it over. Yeah.
Okay,
so
so
she
we
want
could-
it to be like about 41, so it's not to the end. Wait,
It has
you
to
do
be above 3 feet. Shoot, I forgot that.
So she's 5'7", right?
Yeah, she has 5 feet 7 inches.
5'7". No, that'd be
Hold on, wait.
5 and 7 12.
So the 60 feet is like the end. That's like if she goes over 60. So like 59.
How can we figure out what angle would be the minimum? Like, what angle would hit the net?
When she do
Well,
like this.
you can do okay. Hold on, you have 39. Oh, I think I know.
If I drew a picture in 2 dimensions to try to match this situation,
2 dimensions.
like this is trying to be 3 dimensions, right? It's got perspective. So I've got 21 feet, 3 feet from the net, 39 feet, some height more than 5 feet 7 inches.
Wait,
Why do I say some height more than?
Wait, I think I know
She
what
throws
I'm
it
gonna
over
figure
your
out. So like, if can I go up?
I don't care. Right now I'm looking for my tennis racket.
Oh, you have a tennis racket?
Yep.
Mr. Hudson,
You don't have a tennis
Wait,
racket?
hold on, I want to
No.
try something.
You don't just take one to school with you?
Y'all, does anyone have the marker thing that I can't find?
They're on my desk.
Okay.
Or use your finger.
Finger door.
No.
Okay. Well.
What was that like?
Sorry, hold on. This is. So this is the. Okay, then start with this one right here. And then.
I have some tennis balls.
And if
that
we
just
know
don't
that
have
this is 39
rackets.
feet. Leave me alone.
It does not work.
Then we can calculate this, cause can we assume this is a right angle? So then we can do the Pythagorean theorem,
Totally line, but
like 39, 27.
I
Then we
think
can
I
figure out this, and then we can use like sin, cos, tan to figure out this angle.
I know you think it's funny, but please get out of the habit of saying sin and cos. Like it's
Sin,
wrong.
Cosine.
Like,
Sine, cosine, tangent.
because I was about like, do you want to be having a conversation with somebody and say something wrong? Like, probably not.
So can we do that?
I have a problem.
Okay.
I agree with what you're writing, but you said Pythagorean theorem.
Oh no.
Do we care how far the ball is traveling?
no.
Oh, we
want
don't
the
care about the
angle, so we
angle.
want
We
the
can
angle.
figure out the angle already with just these 2 things, right?
And actually, one of the things we're trying to figure out is this possible?
Because if it goes.
So think about this. If you were only 3 feet tall,
Sorry.
You just have to hit it straight.
It has to be a
you'd have to hit it straight, and then it would have to drop,
Yeah.
right? Like, because if
So you
we're
have
talking a linear path,
That's
it can't go and then drop. It has to be straight the whole time.
So that wouldn't.
So,
you'd have
from-
to hit it like higher.
Karina at the service spot. I don't know where my tennis ball is.
I'm pretty sure.
So you don't, right?
Oh,
If
well, it
you,
worked.
like 5-7 is Karina's head.
But
You
her-
serve up here.
Oh.
Is 5-7 what we're working with?
No.
No.
Well,
So
I mean,
we shouldn't. It's greater than 5. Some distance we don't know because we don't know how long Karina's arm is. We don't know how big of a racket she's using, but we know it's up here.
So then how do we figure out her arm length?
We don't.
And we don't know where her
So
arm
you're trying to solve the wrong part of the triangle.
Oh no.
Ignore all of this.
Okay.
We know the 21, right? Like that we know it. We know the 3. So could we? Did you use the pen? And if so, where is
I
it?
use my finger.
Okay. Because I think your class lost my 1 pen.
What?
What we're wondering is what is this theta minimum? And then we know we have to be over that. So essentially, if we use 3, we hit the net. Right? That 3 feet would be the top of the net. Half the ball would be over, half would be hitting the net. So if we find this theta, we can then figure out, well, a little bit more than that, and we're safe. So how do we solve that theta?
What is it?
Which trig?
Trigonometry?
Tangent uses opposite and adjacent. You can also think of when you have the legs of the triangle, we're using tangent. If we had the hypotenuse, we use one of the other ones. So we're going to use tan of a theta we don't know.
Equals opposite over 3. Opposite is 3. 3 over 21.
So it's actually 1/7 really.
Or 1/7.
So inverse tangent of 1/7. Make sure you're on degrees. Gets a theta of 8.13.
That's what I got.
So because it's easier, let's operate with the it would hit the net and like barely get over, because then we'll be able to tweak a tiny bit at the end, right?
Yeah.
This would hit the net and barely get over, maybe. Like if we got lucky, if it was spinning and like
So
could
it'd have to
climb.
be like maybe more than 8.2.
Yeah, so we're saying theta needs to be greater than 8.13, but we're going to use that number because it's a rigid value that we can use.
And then don't we just need to do the triangle sum? Wait, yeah.
Triangle something.
No.
Yeah, it's 90.
Oh, we could if we're looking at this angle, sure. So I mean, we could just subtract that from 90, right? But if we're talking about angle of descent or angle of decline, it actually would be the 8, right? Because it's 8 degrees down. Because if it's 8 degrees up, it's also 8 degrees down to get there, right? So this is also going to be, so we actually don't need to do triangle sum theorem. What do we need to figure out, or what we do need to figure out is, where's the ball?
Well, where her arm? Well,
At home, I think in my laundry room, because you put tennis balls in the dryer if you want to
are
fluff
we
things
gonna
up.
think about the fact that the
My
ball
guess is
hits the
where my
rocket into
tennis
the
balls
equator?
are at, but where's hers to be able to make that linear path? So how do we do that? We know the angle now.
You can.
Wait, we know the angle and we know her height. Oh wait, but we don't know.
We don't really know the height of the ball. So this is a question mark. We know it's going to be bigger than 5'7".
Okay, we know the angle and we know this part.
Okay, we can figure out the like. So if you make that into one big triangle, like I kind of did at the beginning, you can do the 21. Can do the 60 on the bottom, and then you can use that angle to figure out the hypotenuse, and then use 2 of those to figure out the other angle.
The hypotenuse.
The what?
Well, because if we want to figure out, I mean, or no,
What?
yeah, because you need 2 sides.
We have 2 pieces of
or you
information.
can just do the other one. You can just do the other leg. Like
By...
using the using tangent.
So draw this on your paper if you don't have it yet.
I forgot that there are other things that you can do.
In trig, if we have 2 pieces of information, doesn't matter what 2, we can solve it. right? So we have 2. So we can now set up tangent of 8.13, which actually what we found out is the ratio is 1 to 7. So this ratio is still going to actually be 1 to 7. Another way we could have actually done this, technically, is that rise over run, rise over run. Right? From the net 3 and the service box 21, rise over run. So, what do we get for that question mark?
8.57.
So,
She has like 3 feet long arms.
Now wait a minute, hold on.
Or the 10.
So,
the arms don't.
hold on, 8.5. So half a foot. This is like 8 feet 7 inches maybe. It's like 8'7". Now, do you get the extension of your entire arm?
No, because it's bent, and then you also have the racket.
Well, it's your arm minus your head, right?
So it's your forearm and the racket.
So if that's 8'7", and she is how tall? 5'7"?
Yeah.
Didn't we say? She needs an extra 3 feet. Well, is this reasonable? How long is this? Well, so
Looks like maybe.
standard tennis racket. Things just jump out of your hands. Well, that's two feet long. Because you're going to be holding it like right here, right? So like 2 feet. And then, do you guys know your wingspan? How you can get?
Isn't it comparative to your height?
Your wingspan, your distance from fingertip to fingertip across should be essentially your height vertically. So from your sternum, which is that front chest bone, out to your fingertips is half of your body height. Right? Now take away probably about 6 inches, and then take away your head, which is like, I don't know, like a foot maybe. So what we're really saying is, what extension do we get here? How long do you think this is? Or do you think that part plus this is 3 feet worth?
Yeah, that's like that.
This was 2 feet, right? Do you think my forearm gives me like a foot?
Yeah.
So
it's reasonable.
I'm just gonna keep throwing things all.
Gravity's
So
really bad right
right,
there.
your elbow's at your head. So the question is, does your forearm plus a tennis racket, could it be 3 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, assuming that she gets the ball up to 8 feet 7 inches or higher, right? It can take a straight line path down. Any height below 8 feet 7 inches, it's gonna hit the net, or it's gonna have to like. So you can also.
Could she jump?
And this is what.
Jump in tennis?
Ooh, you can. But I think you have to keep one foot on the ground.
Yeah,
I think your left foot has to be on the ground.
Totally allowed to jump
Yeah.
up and hit it.
Now, when learning how to play tennis, people will like dink it, like arc it over the net, right? But like that's not what she's doing. So if she can't reach that height, she'd have to arc the ball, right? So this is where actually, like, when we're talking comparing athletes, it's not fair because mathematically, scientifically, like, it's not fair. A taller player has an easier time hitting that ball on a straight, fast path. Does this make sense?
Tennis?
Yo.
Cool.
Math killed tennis, y'all.
I had to like tennis and soccer.
Now we know tennis isn't fair for short people.
It really isn't. Well, they have to compensate in other ways.
They just yeah, we're high.
Heels on the court. Heels on the
That didn't
court,
look
like
disadvantage for the game.
I doubt they would wear heels. It'd probably be more like
They're
platform
tripping.
shoes
They just
instead
like
of heels.
trip.
Yeah.
She tripping.
Oh.
They just tie
You've been
stores.
hired as a consultant for the
NTA. Is that a thing?
Oh,
The
wow.
NTA.
That probably is a thing, right? The national.
So-
And the NBA game, probably.
Oh, this is real.
Oh my goodness, this is real. Wait, y'all, do you get
All right, flip this question. Flip this, flip around what we were doing. So you've been hired, right, as a consultant. Consultants make lots of money depending on what you're consulting on. So they want to raise the net to make this even more unfair.
Well, that's nice. Wait, what is
So this conversation of you asking, do you jump? So they're talking at NTA, and they're like, you know what? It would look so much cooler if every serve had somebody jumping, and instead of just serving the ball, you're like, whoa!
It's like
You know, that's a
volleyball when you
sweet
jump.
epic.
Whoa.
So-
It'd be like badminton.
We want the ball to be
Whoa.
10 feet high, probably about like up here.
Whoa.
We want the ball to be 10 feet high when they serve, because it's gonna look sweet, and we need to raise the viewership of pro tennis on TV. So do the math.
People just like
What
jumping.
would the height, the new height of the net be, so that the 10-foot height of the ball will just clear? We have all the data that we need. We just have to use 10 now instead of.
Something.
Are we gonna use the angle that we had?
Yeah.
No, we can use another different angle.
Wait, guys, we know two things. Oh wait, no, we don't. Do we know two things?
Oh,
We
don't
know?
we know the length of the court?
Yeah, the court is 60 feet, so we know
And they
two
must
things.
strike the ball from at least 10 feet high in the court, so we have like
So
the two
60
legs.
and 10, we can figure out the angle.
This is so old. These
Yeah.
things should move a lot easier than that.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I should take it to my buddy and have him
Okay,
restring
this
it.
is 60, and then the height is at least 10 feet. So there, we have two pieces of information. So now we can do something. I think.
Yeah.
Wait, but do we know the height of the net?
No, that's
Now
what we're
we're
solving
trying to
for.
find that.
No, like
No,
we like okay, so
It's gonna be more than 3, assumedly. They're raising the net, right?
We just.
So I gotta
Yeah,
save
but
this
by how
before
much?
auto save. We don't know. Enough to make you serve from 10 feet up and jump. You know it would be sweet. Next thing they're gonna do is light the tennis ball on fire.
Oh, honestly, I think I
It's gonna
like
burn the racket.
I would very much like that.
You know when you like miss and
Yeah.
accidentally hit your hand or your arm? That
Oh
would
no,
suck.
I'm on fire.
What if
Oh.
occasionally the ball explodes?
I heard of people in like
I feel like
tennis.
it might.
I heard of like people who play tennis in like Arizona. They'll be like throw up in the middle of the match and just go back right into the match because it's so hot outside. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is commitment. Some tennis court.
Actually, some tennis trig. There you go.
I don't think tennis players would like that. So, oh,
Wait, can we go back to the one that gives us all the numbers instead of just 60?
No, because we only need one of them.
Yeah, but I wanted
Can
to
you
find the
imagine
distance
a
from
tennis-
where the net was, like how far from the serving lane.
Can you
Well, that was
imagine
21,
a tennis
right?
player who just
Oh.
Because we
wants
said
to
then
do
the
it
other section was
right.
18 back there.
realize it was 20.
Wasn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, because
What?
then the whole length of the court on this side was 39.
Yeah.
Right. This we're trying to make 10.
That's very
This we don't know because they can't remake the course, but they could change how high the net is.
We'll have to get new posts on the sides.
We don't know this.
So
Oh, wait, we can just
we know.
figure out the height of the net.
Shouldn't we want the angle and then
Yeah.
we can figure out the
We can just
missing
do-
side?
Well, we know the angle is 8.1.
We can get the
No,
small
I was
one.
saying
Wait,
this one.
10.
It
Oh,
changed
shoot,
because
you're
it's
right.
10.
You're right. It's
So-
now 10.
Because remember the angle of 8.1 or whatever we had, that made the ball height 8 feet 7 inches, not 10 feet like we want.
Oh, I got a number, but I don't know if it's the right number.
Wait, are they
It's a
similar
number, yeah.
triangles?
We want this, right? We have this and this.
Yeah, so
Tangent.
so I did tangent and I got 9.46.
Oh,
And then if you do the thing,
I got 80.53, but I don't know if I did it right.
What? 80 point?
No, I don't
Are
think
you
I
in
did
there?
it
Did you
right.
do 60 over 10?
I did that at first because I accidentally did 6 rather than 1/6.
It's inverse tangent of 1/6.
Inverse.
That's
so
what
like-
I think you did 6 over
I
1.
think.
Or check that you're in degrees.
I just did divided by 6, and then it was like, oh, you
Did you
made
get
6.
9 point?
Yeah, 9 point something.
I got
9 point what?
9.46.
And then you do 20.
Ooh.
21 times the tangent like that.
Yeah, so then we're going to resolve, but using the 21, and now the angle that we know of that 9.46.
Oh.
So we're going to do tangent of 9.46 something, that's a question mark, over 21.
When I did that, I got 3.5. So they
3.5.
raise it by
Round
a
it
half,
up,
like
but
3.499.
they basically raise it by half a foot.
Yeah. So they'd be raising it by like 6 inches, which would actually impact a lot of play.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying this just being a tennis player, not anyone who really knows the why. But the net when you're on the court is about waist height, which makes like when you're hitting, you know, like with your body, you can kind of feel where does the ball need to be. If you raise that 6 inches, that would mess up all sorts of pieces of the game. Does this math make sense? I know it's kind of silly because we're like just doing it with tennis courts and stuff, but
It also
it uses
messed up
triangles.
because you'd be so used to the height of it, you'd hit it and keep on hitting the net.
Yeah. And normally when you play doubles, somebody plays at net and somebody plays back. So the person at net plays a lot of small shots, like right.
But they'd
just
have to
on
hit it up more.
Yeah.
Or
Or when it's high, you hit it straight down, so then the other team can't get it.
I don't know how tennis works.
Mr. Flynn, did you ever play tennis?
Mr. Flint is.
I might have lost him.
Oh.
Did you ever play tennis?
Like competitively?
Just
or-
like ever.
Yeah.
We're doing trigonometry with tennis.
He
That's
ruined
important.
it. I was on a tennis team.
Yeah, same. I was high school tennis
So
too.
you would school me then.
Not anymore.
Then what can I
The
do?
You
teacher
know,
said
I can
play
imagine
tennis.
like Mr. Hudson on the tennis
Mr.
court
Hall
when
used to be a
he's
tennis pro.
Yeah, it could be Mr. Hall.
Can y'all like imagine Mr. Hudson like on a tennis court playing someone all of a sudden he's like, I think I have a higher advantage because I'm taller.
I would. We just proved that.
I know.
We proved that tennis isn't fair.
Explaining to the
All right,
why you have a higher advantage.
We've solved everything we need to, guys. Go ahead and dive into your homework. Yeah, you got like 10 or 15 minutes. I wanted this to be kind of easy because that's our first day back, like from break.
Can we get ice cream?
Oh, I mean, do you want them today?
Yeah.
Yes. And we have time.